University. He's the author of many books and articles, most recently El Modelo Económico Social Comunitario Productivo Boliviano, and he has a vast experience teaching undergraduates and graduate students at public and private universities in the plurinational state of Bolivia. He has also lectured at numerous universities abroad, including Georgetown, American, Pittsburgh, Harvard, University of Chicago, and the University of Buenos Aires. I'm very glad about that. Today we have the honor, that was my alma mater, today we have the honor of having him visiting us at Columbia University. Welcome to Columbia, His Excellency. We're very, very happy to have you with us. We also have him in conversation with University Professor Joseph Stiglitz, who's an American economist, and he's also the co-chair of the high-level expert group on the measurement of economic performance and social progress at the OECD, and the chief economist of the Roosevelt Institute. Professor Stiglitz is a recipient of the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences in 2001 and the John Bates Clark Medal in 1979. He's a former senior vice president and chief economist of the World Bank and a former member and chairman of the U.S. President Council of Economic Advisors. In 2000, Professor Stiglitz founded the Initiative for Policy Dialogue, a think tank on international development based at Columbia University, and he has been a member of the Columbia faculty since 2001 and received the university's highest academic rank, University Professor, in 2003. Known for his pioneering work on asymmetric information, Stiglitz's work focusing on income distribution, risk, corporate governance, public policy, macroeconomic, and globalization. In 2001, he was named by Time magazine as one of the 100 most influential people in the world. This is an extraordinary opportunity for our community at Columbia University to have a conversation of this caliber with two extraordinary speakers who I'm sure will teach us a lot and will give our students a fresh look on economic policy making amidst a pandemic, among other topics. Please join me in welcoming His Excellency President Arce and Professor Stiglitz.
Let me first add my word of welcome to you. And this is a special event because this is actually the first big public event after COVID-19. So it's nice to be able to welcome you. Also, I know I'm prejudiced about this, but I always feel good having an economist as a president. I think that makes the prospects. But I thought maybe we would begin by you giving a little statement about why you've been so successful in restoring growth in Bolivia, some of the broad challenges, just a few minutes before we get into a question and answer.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Stiglitz, and all of you here in Columbia University. I'm very happy to be here. Well, first of all, as many of you may know, Bolivia in 2019, we had a coup d'etat where they became a new government, where they changed our model. We were in a model which we call the communitarian productive social economic model, which was made for people in the university in Bolivia, made by Bolivian professionals for the Bolivian economy. It was the first idea we had in mind at the time, and we put in place in 2006, and it was successful. But then, after the coup d'etat, they returned to the neoliberalism model. The neoliberalism model showed the bad economic and social results in November, December, January, February, and March, because the pandemia in Bolivia appeared in March last year. So 5 months, more or less, the neoliberalism model was there, and we went back in economic and social indicators, and then, of course, the pandemic came and affected completely the economy. We had last year 9% of recession. The fiscal budget or the fiscal deficit increased up to more than 11% of the GDP. We reduced. We went back in the Gini coefficient, for example. Also, the unemployment went up to 11% from 4%. Also, we have the poverty increased again. And when we became government in October last year, and also I remember our discussions, Professor Stiglitz there, in November we took some measures, political measures, in order to make the economy react. And what we did, all the pandemic has two effects, on the demand side and on the supply side. We started to increase, to enhance the internal demand. The internal demand we increased by two ways. The first one is to increase the demand for the people, giving them a transfer, a conditional transfer, what we call the bono contra el hambre, to everybody who didn't have at the time a job. Because in my country, more or less 30%, 35% of the population, they have a job, they have wages, salaries. But the rest of the people, they work by themselves, and they earn each day, what they did, what they do every day. And in the pandemic, the de facto government, they did just go home and remain there. And people needs to eat, needs many things that they didn't have the opportunity to work. So at that time, the internal demand was completely destroyed. So that's why we started to improve the internal demand with these conditional transfers that we call bono contra el hambre, and I started to give them back the VAT for people who have low wages. Also, we increase we react our public investment, which for our model is very important, because internal demand is not only consumption but also investment, public investment, especially public investment. In our model, the state has an important role in the economy. So if the state is not pushing the internal demand, the investment in our model, doesn't work. I mean, I think in the neoliberalist model, the private sector should be investing, right? But in our case, it's the public sector, because of many things that maybe later on we can discuss if there's some question about our model. But what we did is only to push the internal demand and also public investment, which was completely destroyed, when we came to the government. And that's one of the things. The other thing we did in the past, in last year, was also to enhance the productive sector. The de facto government canceled a huge policy that we had with the financial sector, the banking sector. What was that? We set a 60% of the total loans of the banks should be for loans to the productive or housing sectors. When they were in the government, just, they killed this policy. But no, again, when we re-established this measure for our government, for the people, and that thing, it's one of the things. Secondly, what we did is we put in place a trust fund in order to make loans for industrialization process and import substitutions in my country with 0.5% annually of interest rate. Then also we free from tax investments and good imports, capital good imports and so on, in order to improve all the machinery that we need in order to get the industrialization process with import substitution. And we succeed. Also, we are backing all the improvement in the agriculture sector. Bolivia is a country where, has the smallest productivity in land, in agriculture. So we are improving them in order to make all the sustainable agriculture production. All these things are set in place, and they are giving us the economic growth now we have. Last year, as I said, we had 9% of recession. Now we are looking in August to more than 8% of the growth rate, and we are looking to finish this year at least 6% of GDP growth rate, which is very important for us, but more important, we have reduced the unemployment rate from 11 to 6. Still higher than from the 4% we had in 2018-19, but from 11 I think it's a good figure. And we also introduced some redistribution policies. For example, we introduced a tax, high income tax, for rich people. We introduced it, and we have important tax revenue for this new tax, and of course it means that we are recovering our redistribute model that we built up since 2006. So, just in order to resume one thing, we have internal demand, enhance the production and productivity, and redistribution, income redistribution. Those are the key questions that are giving us this recovery, this economic recovery that now all in my country are, facing, and then they are feeling in the pockets as well.
Well, thank you. That was really very interesting. Maybe just a couple questions about the Bolivian model, both now and where we've gotten a large list of questions before we started. I'm going to weave some of them into my conversation. One question is, one of the things that was very striking about Bolivia is how much you reduced inequality since President Morales became the president. You want to say a word about how you did that?
Sure. That was the same recipe, income redistribution through our bonds, our transfer, conditional transfers. We had 5 conditional transfers. Also, we have some subsidies. For example, electricity. In the cities, we pay more for the electricity than in the rural area. And it's a kind of, cross subsidy. And things like that. And also we increase the salaries, we increase the income of the families with many other policies. So, we didn't make poorer to the rich people. We did, much richer the poor people. Yeah. So that's why, we had a Gini coefficient coming down from more or less 0.46, to 0.37, 36 in the Gini coefficient. We, together with Brazil, Bolivia was one of the more income concentrated country in South America. But now, at that time, now I can't say you anything, but at that time, from that place, we were the 5th better income distribution country in the region. So we did that redistribution income with policies that the state, taking in charge.
So you mentioned import substitution policies. In the 1980s, import substitution policies got a very bad name in Latin America. Do you want to comment on that and some of the ways in which your import substitution policies are different from those like in Brazil that failed? Or
sure. You know, the pandemic just showed us that in South America, even in Latin America, I would say many countries are now import dependent in all the drugs and vaccines and everything that we need in order to face the pandemic and all the health problems that we have. In our countries, we are importing, and that's not good. And more than that, why import substitution? Because if you look at what the indigenous peoples have done against the pandemic, they used the traditional medicine, the medicine that they learned from the fathers and so on, and that kind of medicine was that they use in order to face COVID-19, all right? And they succeed. So we in South America and in many countries, we can use the traditional medicine in order to fight it. And that's it. That is industrialization and import substitution, for example. And we have a lot of another examples that Bolivia have. The neoliberalists, what they didn't do any time was to industrialize the country. What the neoliberalists have done in Bolivia particularly is that they came for our national resources, they exploit them, and they don't leave anything, even industry. So that's why we have to make the process of industrialization and industrialization with import substitution, because at that time, especially in the current international world, where everybody is coming back to become from the free trade or the globalization to a kind of, to defend itself, country. It's not now looking for a globalization process. Rather, everybody is protecting their economies. So in America Latina and in Bolivia, we have to understand what's going on and prepare for, in any case, something can occur afterwards.
So one of the things that's happening, and one of your sources of strength in the past has been natural gas, and that revenue has been going down. Mm-hmm. And some people are very optimistic about your lithium deposits, sure, which I think are the largest, or among the largest in the world. Do you want to say a word about how you're thinking about developing that? And there are many worries that when people talk about developing lithium, about the environment, about bringing in foreign investors, including Chinese investors. Mm-hmm. Do you want to say any?
Sure. Well, actually, our model is based on the national resources, but industrializing our national resources, not only exploiting like gas, like lithium. We have iron as well. We can export also electricity and many other things, even food, when we improve the productivity in the agriculture sector. We can export. So the key issue for us is that we have the national resource, but we need to industrialize them, because otherwise we will repeat the past history, and we are not going in that way. So we need technology, we need to have agreements with special partners, let's say, in order to industrialize, but the industrialization has to be in my country. That's the only condition that we put to the international investors. The foreign direct investment can come to Bolivia if we are talking about the national resources according to their constitution, the current constitution. We need to have, as a country, at least 51% of the business. Okay, if they agree, they can come, make the business with us, and go together. Actually, before the coup d'etat in 2019, we were just arriving in an agreement with a Germany company in order to exploit and industrialize the lithium in Bolivia. And then, whatever came the coup d'etat and so on. But we are again restarting all this process, inviting all the companies. There are a couple of United States companies, trying to get in the Bolivian lithium, also Russia, also China, or European countries. Everybody is there, because we are doing a kind of competition who's going to give us a better technology with direct extractions of lithium, and the timing, the quality of the lithium they can extract with their technology, and the timing for industrializing our lithium. The best of the proposals, we will sign an agreement with them in order to industrialize the lithium, but in Bolivia. And they also, the companies, the private international companies, they have to assure us markets for our batteries, for our whatever they wanted to produce, no problem at all. Even we have in mind to produce vehicles. Why is that? Because we also have a huge mine in iron in my country. So we have all the national resources in order to become, an industrialized country. We have the natural resource. We don't need to sell anymore the raw material. We have the raw material, the natural resource, but also we are trying to this kind of business in order to attract all the FDIs.
Now you mentioned your constitution, and in your neighbor Chile, there's a constitutional convention going on. Do you want to say something about what you thought were the big advances in your constitution and what Chile might learn from Bolivia?
Oh, well, I think every country is different one to another. But I think they can take some of our experiences. In fact, I know that there are some indigenous leaders in Chile that are getting in touch with some of our leaders in Bolivia in order to get some experience of what was the Constituency Assembly. And I think they are going very well, the relationship, in order to avoid all the mistakes we did in the past, but also learn on our mistakes.
So one of the questions that came in from one of the students was, in what way do you think is your government going to be different from Morales' government before? And, both in economic policy, but I've talked too much about economics because that's my passion, but in other dimensions as well.
Well, every people is different from other people, but we have only one process of change in my country. We call it change processing, that is only one, that started in 2006. We are going to follow all, because I was there, it's not a strange thing for me. I was there, building up our process and democratic, economic, and social measure policies. I was there, so we are not going to change what we don't think that it was not working, let's say. No? But what we are now trying to get more emphasized is, the industrialization process, increasing the productive agriculture and other sectors, and so on. So, in order, of course, the health problem is also another issue for us, because all over the world is changing their minds in order to face all the problems the world is facing. So, I don't think will be a huge change in the policies, because, as I said, I was there doing the policies as well.
Okay. So another question that came in has to do with the pandemic, and in what ways was Bolivia's strategy different and similar from the other countries in your neighborhood and elsewhere? And how did you see the trade-off that some people made a big deal between health and economics?
Mm-hmm. Okay, good questions, Professor. First, the main difference we have is that the national resources in our model, from our point of view, have to be under the state property. So we have to nationalize all of them, in order to have all the natural resources. Because if you do not control the natural resource, you are not in charge of the natural resource, you cannot apply what we have done in our model. That's the big difference with other countries that can, try to do the same, but if they don't control the natural resource by the state, it will be very difficult to do similar things that we have done. In the second part of your question, you have to combine the economic with the health, because in the Bolivian experience, the past government, the de facto government, what they have done is only, supposedly, only care about health and forget economy. And then, in an economy where the characteristics I have just told you, that we have 35%, working for wages, and more than 60% just working by themselves, that's a wrong way to approach the problem of the economy and health. What we are doing in my country is a combination of both. The economy recovery is very important, but of course you cannot, avoid to face also the health problem. And we are doing both things. I think the correct way to face this kind of things is to balance, economic and health. Because if there is no economy, you don't have anything. But of course, for the other side, if only you look at the health problem, you are going to have a huge problem. That's the way we are facing. That's the problem we're facing in last year in our government.
Yeah. So there are a number of questions about politics, which I hesitate to tread on, but I'll read them anyway. One of them is, can you possibly tell us about the difference between those Bolivians who supported MAS, your party, and those who supported the attempted coup?
Well, it's actually, the results of the elections were very clear. The most important opponent we have in the past elections, they get no more than 30% of the votes. We got 55%, and I think that's clear.
Yeah. Is there any difference in the socioeconomic background of the groups? Is there that supported you versus supported versus?
For us, it's very clear. We have low-income people, voting for us, or the poor people, the indigenous people, people who work in the rural area, is of course voting for us. But also in the cities, we have important part of media class as well, which is very important for us. Why? Because everybody is worried about the economy, and they know that MAS have a good performance managing the economy. And when the right parties become the government, there is corruption, there is no money, there is no investment, there is no result for people. So that's why I think people vote for us, and we are working for those people who vote for us.
So, we live in a very polarized country, United States, and we're feeling very frustrated about being able to bring people together. Do you have any sense about, and Bolivia has been very divided. Is there any strategy you have of trying to bring people on the other side to support you more, besides the model of good government and good economy? Is there anything you can say to persuade the right that you're doing the right thing?
Actually, you have 1/3 of the population in the right-hand side, and 1/3 in the left-hand side. So you have 1/3, which is the middle class mostly, that they decide. Sometimes they can, realize that it's better going to the right-hand side or to the left-hand side. But in our case, it was very clear. What is the most important worries of people? Economy. Why we get more votes than the right-hand side? Because we did a better job managing the economy than the right parties. And I think and understand that that's why they were giving us another opportunity to manage the country. And as we were talking at the beginning, we are succeeding because we are demonstrating that the mass has a project, has a program, has a model that is giving good results for people.
So some people see the success of the left in Bolivia as part of a broader movement in Latin America and elsewhere. Do you have any view of one of the students talked about a pink tide? What is your dream, short or long term, for a united Latin American left?
Oh, well, actually, it's much easier to talk to all the other presidents that have the same idea in mind. Of course, it's much easier to do it. And, of course, we would like to have, many other presidents that you can talk to. But, in any case, if there is no that kind of president, we have to talk to them. We have to make business for people. We have to do, whatever is needed in order to get better results for our countries. And that's it. I mean, one has to be very objective looking at what you have in front of you. If it's better, of course, for us, it's much better to talk to a left-hand man or president, of course. You can understand they have the same needs, the same ideas. You can propose, projects that everybody will be happy with. But you have to do it, whatever is needed in order to get better days for people.
Good. So we're supposed to begin a question and answer with our Zoom.
All right.
So I guess I don't know how this works. Somebody is going to call on. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Hello? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Before I start. Perfect. Wonderful. Okay, here. Hey, I'm Blair. I'm an MA student here at the European Institute at Columbia. And I was just curious about where you see the economies of Latin America in general and Bolivia in the next 5 to 10 years. That was the question.
Okay. There are many countries that are in a huge problem that if they don't resolve now, and most of them are related to how they manage their national resources. If they are still the natural resources in private hands, it is much likely that they cannot do anything, and they will have facing huge economic problems later on. Also, some countries in Latin America are facing high debt levels, and that's another worry of many countries. That's why we were asking in United Nations and World Bank and others that it's important to talk about the debt, to relieve the debt of these countries. Otherwise, these countries will be in problem. It's not our case, fortunately, but we are talking for many countries that are facing that.
Good. Next question.
Hi, my name is Juan Pablo. I am a civil engineer from the Universidad Mayor de San Andrés, and I'm doing my master's degree here at Columbia. My question is, what politics, economic politics, have been doing in the construction and infrastructure sector of Bolivia, which is one of the most affected by the pandemics, being construction one of the important pillars of Bolivian economy. Thank you, President.
Well, it's a good question because when we became government, there was no public investment at all. So all the infrastructure, buildings and so on, what we were building up, they were or stopped or completely destroyed. So what we are doing, and construction is increasing 30% in the GDP. So it's a very important sector that is reacting. And what we have done, of course, is to reestablish the public investment. The state is renewing all the contracts we have for roads and all kind of buildings that we were doing. So that has a huge impact in the construction sector. As I told you, 30% is the growth rate of construction in these 8 months.
Impressive. Next question.
Hello, my name is Olivia Sealer and I'm a student at Columbia College, and I was wondering how COVID-19 has shaped the priorities in your economic policy goals and the means that you're taking to reach these goals.
Oh, we are going to do the same. It means increase the production, import substitution with industrialization process, and more important thing, income redistribution, which is the key question in order to have a more equal country. We start from a very simple point of view. If a country is more equal, the growth rate go faster.
So one of the things that's happened in the United States is that the pandemic has actually increased inequalities and exposed them. Is that also?
Yes, it happened in my country as well.
Yeah. But one of the really interesting things in the United States was that the massive government spending, which was about 25% of GDP, prevented an increase in poverty. So we actually managed, in spite of the fact that the disease was affecting the poor and they were losing their jobs, we offset that effect by with President Biden and the other measures to stop poverty from increasing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's the way you have to manage the problem.
Next question.
Good evening, President Atacora. My name is Kevin Covarrubias, and I am a master's student in the political science program. My question for you is, how do you think Bolivia's and other Latin American countries' cooperation with China's Belt and Road Initiative will benefit your efforts to create an economy of Mother Earth, as you put it, and find alternative methods of combating climate change? Thank you.
Well, it's a key question for us because we work in order to meet with Mother Earth. And development, implies that we have to invest more money in order to be according to the Mother Earth life. What I mean, for poor countries to reach the development, it's most costly now that because we have to introduce in the costs, obviously, new technology, whatever, which is, friendly with the Mother Earth. And of course, for us, it's much more difficult to get this kind of development. But we have to do it. And that's why, of course, we are asking always in the international forums that we need technology transfer from the rich countries. And why is that? Because if we don't have that technology, we need to develop as well as they did in the past. And in the past, the rich countries, they didn't take into account Mother Earth and all the problems that we are facing now. And that's why we ask to the rich peoples to become, more equitative with the technology, and they should transfer all the technology to our countries that we need to develop, because we have people as well. They live, they want to live, they want to eat, they want to dress, whatever, and we need to develop, and that's why we need the technology. So that's the main issue for them. And when you talk to all the South American countries, everybody, even the right parties in the power now, they agree that that's the main problem for us, the transfer technology. That's why when you see all the statements in the international forums, all the presidents become, asking for the technology or whatever ways in order to reduce the cost for developing in our countries.
Okay. Next question.
Bienvenido, estimado señor presidente.
Welcome, dear President, to Columbia University.
Faculty member at the business school. I teach the Impact Venture Incubator course focused on startups addressing problems affecting people on the planet. My question for you, sir, is this. How do you view entrepreneurship as a positive agent of change for the Bolivian people? And the second part of the question, if I may, what national policies are you considering to bolster tech-based innovation through entrepreneurship in Bolivia? Gracias.
Well, we are open to all technologies that can come to Bolivia to help us to develop. And we understand that the most need, the huge need we have is in the small producers rather than in the big enterprises, And they can buy the technology, they can solve the problems by themselves, but we need to help the small and micro enterprises where we are focusing in our policy, and that's why we have reduced the VAT and all the taxes for capital goods imports. So we are focusing on this sector, but of course everybody is benefiting from our policy, but we understand that we have to do something more for this kind of sectors, which is our worry. It means the micro and small enterprises.
And what about finance for those small enterprises?
We have a good school of micro funding, Bolivia and Peru, I think in South America, should be the countries that have more experience and more experience to transfer in the micro financing. And it's very important for us. And also, they have special financial rules in Bolivia for small bankings that helps to small producers. We have special policies for them.
And do you encourage or force banks to allocate a certain fraction of their portfolio to small businesses?
Well, the 60% that I was talking at the beginning is for all. I mean, big enterprises and small enterprises. You can have the thing is that the banks have to have 60% of the loans in productive. It doesn't matter the size of the enterprise. In the productive sector or housing. So that's yesterday, the day before yesterday, I have a thesis of one of my students in the university, and they demonstrate that this law, the law that that the banks should loan 60% of the loans into the productive and housing was the main issue that explains the economic growth. So we are starting and based on that thesis, we are thinking maybe we can increase 60% to 70% if it's needed, because we need at this time, an enhance in the productive sector, and that could be a good idea. We are exploring. We are not saying that, but it could be a good idea.
So one part of America's banking system is called CRA, Community Reinvestment Act, and it requires 10% of banks' portfolio to go to underserved parts of our society. Okay. And it's been very effective. You know, the banks figure out how to make good loans to people who otherwise would not have been served. Something to think about.
Yes.
Next question.
Greetings from the other side of the country, from Oakland, California. I am Claudia Gonzalez from the Institute from the Study of Human Rights 2021-2022 Alliance for Historical Dialogue and Accountability Fellowship Program at Columbia University. And my question is as following. Given the extraordinary outcome of the past 14 years of Bolivian socioeconomic growth, how do you think, Mr. President, that the Bolivian experience and lessons can be shared regionally and globally? Thank you.
It's a good question. Thank you. Whenever I was trying to explain our economic model, this question arises. And we said, our model is very simple. We take advantage of the national resources and make the redistribution process not only in people, but also in sectors, because from the national resource primary sector, we are trying to get to industrialization and to increase the industrial sector and other sectors based on the extractive sector. When you find a country who has, national resources, and the national resources are under state control, you can apply our model easily, because we have succeeded on our model. But if you don't have national resources, or having national resources are not under the state control, probably the model cannot work. It's probably. I mean, it depends, I think, in every country.
Next question.
Hello, Your Excellency. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Geet Chawla, and I'm a graduate student at the School of International Public Affairs at Columbia University. My question for you is, women and girls in Bolivia remain at a high risk of gender-based violence despite legal protection in Bolivia. Gender-based violence has the characteristic of not knowing any economic and social boundaries. How do you think this impacts Bolivia's economy?
Okay, could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. Women and girls in Bolivia remain at a high risk of gender-based violence despite legal protection. Gender-based violence has the characteristic of not knowing any economic or social boundaries. How would it impact Bolivia's economy, in your opinion?
Well, one of the gender problems we have is because women don't have economic independence. So we are working on improve the economy for everybody, including, of course, women. That in our case, we have succeeded when women find job, women get, a better education, they can reach a better independent life, rather than to depend on a man, and that's why many of the problems, especially in low-income people in my country, that's what we have seen. So the economy is very important in order to make more equal or more opportunities for women, and that's the idea we have in mind. Also, some other laws have to be in place in order to get more care about these problems that we are facing, I think, in all South America. But in Bolivia, we are trying to solve this problem, and I think if we have not succeeded yet, I think we are doing in the same correct direction all the measures we are taking for solve this problem.
Next question.
Hello, good afternoon, Mr. President. My father is from Bolivia myself, and I got a very interesting, very, very important point to make. If negotiations with Germany continue regarding, will negotiations with Germany continue regarding the joint venture? If not, is that the case? Will there be more beneficial privatization of businesses and attraction of foreign firms into the country? If so, will there be any conditions opposing foreign firms to produce inside the country or other conditions? Other political question I have. Will former interim president and your predecessor, Janine Ness, be released from jail and be cleared of the fake charges? And will Morales be held accountable for his fake elections and these things? Many things and people are asking themselves these questions in Bolivia. And my good friends in Santa Cruz, and my father also, Valdo, and many of his friends had to leave politics because of Morales and many of these things. So you're promising a lot of things, but Morales turned otherwise, and nothing turned out of that how it was supposed to be. I hope that you as president will maybe change some things. I can only place hope in it. And all the Bolivians who suffer, I hope you can answer some of my questions. And I thank you, President. Muchas gracias.
Well, the first part of your questions, we are still running a process where there are 7 foreign enterprises in order to get the lithium and the business, as I have said before. In the second question, look, there was a coup d'etat, 38 people dead, and no one at this time is responsible for that. It's not in the government hands. It's in the justice hands, because it's a judiciary problem. It's not for the government, who is in charge of making better economy, health, education, whatever. This problem for us has been resolved when an international institution in human rights came to Bolivia, made a statement where they say that they kill people from behind, from the back, and somebody has to pay for that. No one has been dead because of themselves, as they used to say at the time, What happened there is that somebody gave the instruction to the military, to the army, that can shoot, and somebody has to be responsible for that. That's the only thing. Of course, we have said many times that it was a judicial problem. It's not a economic or whatever problem. It is another issue.
So I've been told right there that there's no more time for Zoom questions. We have a few minutes remaining. Do you want to? Was there anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about, or do you want me? Well, first of all,
I think you can make a brief of all what we have said so far, Professor.
Okay. Well, we've covered a wide range of topics. A lot of them, I'm afraid I'm to blame that we kept talking about economics more than politics. Maybe I should ask one more political question that has not been asked, that often comes up, which is, what are the prospects of Bolivia getting access to the sea?
Well, there is already a statement that the International Court made, and we hope that Chile can set up a dialogue process with us in order to solve the problem.
Because that's been a long-standing problem. Landlocked countries are a big disadvantage. Yeah. So we've talked a lot about the economics, but it's related to the politics. And as the president pointed out, the country began earlier, before Morales, with a huge economic divide. And many people may not realize that it was the first really indigenous government in 500 years in Latin America. And one of the striking things about it is that the progress that was made in reducing inequality and poverty. And as the President pointed out, through a large fraction of the world, there's what is called a natural resource curse. That countries with more natural resources, rather than doing better, actually do worse. And what's happened in the last 15 years has been to show that you can actually use your natural resources if you can appropriate them for the people of the country rather than the benefits going outside. You can actually begin to make some growth, and that growth can be shared. And so there was this earlier question of, what kind of example for other countries? There are other countries, the richest country in Latin America, 2/3 of the country were in poverty. And now that's Venezuela, now they're having enormous political problems because of a failure, I think, to earlier share the wealth more widely. And I think it's been very wise that your country has taken the path of trying to make sure the resources are widely shared. But the other thing that's really important, that we're all, and that your government emphasized, is that we have to live within our planetary boundaries. That's the way I put it. You put it in terms of Mother Earth. When I've been down in Bolivia, they talk about it very much. And I think that's something that all the countries of the world have to learn. And we have to live within our planetary boundaries. And unfortunately, it's been a real struggle globally to learn how to change our economic model to live within our planetary boundaries. One of the things I wanted to just pick up also that links the issue that you talked about, import substitution strategy, to the equality issue, is that some of the older import substitution models, like in Brazil, were always about big steel mills, big capital intensive. And a lot of what you're talking about has been about things that can be done on a smaller scale and that will benefit ordinary people. So it's an import substitution that is part of the entrepreneurial models. There was a question about entrepreneurship. It actually is an import substitution model that will feed into helping create a more entrepreneurial economy and a more dynamic economy. So with those just a few remarks, let me thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you.
And I hope our students and our faculty and the whole range of people on Zoom have found it as insightful and learned so much as I have. So thank you very much for coming here.
Thank you, Professor Stiglitz, and thank you to everybody.